We have solutions that will protect our kids. This is my broken record.
There's proof
mantra.
in those numbers. It's unbelievable.
Let's talk about how we protect our kids and make our community safer. Let's start there.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Greg Grunberg, and welcome to Talk About It, the podcast where we focus on topics that everybody should be talking about, and hopefully they will be. Not only talking, but screaming about.
Epilepsy shouldn't keep you from doing anything that you want to do.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
While we will continue our focus on epilepsy, of course, we will also look at other health conditions and causes. Our goal is to knock down, drag out, and eliminate stigma and raise awareness. Each episode, you're going to hear from amazing advocates and champions. You will learn, as I will, about how we can all help to make a real difference.
Talking about it is important. It's all about connecting.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it. Thank you for talking about it.
Thank you for talking about it.
Talk About It is sponsored by Seizures Are Signs. Seizures Are Signs is dedicated to educating those living with or caring for someone with uncontrolled seizures about the importance of early diagnosis, recognition, and treatment. To learn more, please visit seizuresaresigns.com. Seizures Are Signs is made available by Jazz Pharmaceuticals. All right, so let's jump right into this episode of Talk About It. Welcome to a very special episode of Talk About It. Today we have a very heavy episode, but an important one. We need to talk about gun violence. And I was invited to an event run by the Artists and Athletes Alliance. This is an organization that is just incredible. They invited me to a dinner, and I sat across the table from Mark Barden. Mark lost his son at Sandy Hook, and he started the Sandy Hook Promise. His work is incredibly important, and we need to be talking about what he is trying to do in the area of gun reform and gun violence. He's one of my heroes, and you'll see why this is an episode that needs talking about. Thank you. Thank you for sitting down. Last night was absolute enlightening. It was awesome. I hope you felt the same way.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I felt that way. I wasn't sure what to expect from that. And it was, so I can't say it met any kind of expectation other than I felt like it was vibrant, robust conversation. Everybody seemed so engaged. And as Steve said, I mean, we could go on for another hour, and it had already gone for quite a while. And
yeah.
Everybody brought something interesting and different to the table.
And do you find it, are you guys all surprised at the level of knowledge or the lack of knowledge that some people have? Because we see stuff on the news and we see numbers. I mean, we were pulling up numbers. Nick, you pull up a website that was just like, it's the numbers. I'm so sick of the numbers. Like, I want to hear about Daniel.
We were looking at this,
this is crazy.
Gun Violence Archive.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, the numbers are horrific. Yeah. And you know, you're right. There's a place for the numbers. There's a place for the metrics and the research, because I guess it's important for people to know that. But that's not how you tell the story. That's not how you really motivate people. You motivate people with stories and the humanity of it. And that's why I bring pictures of Daniel whenever I do a press conference or talk to people about something. And when I want to really reach them, I think you need to relate to them where in their heart, and they need to know what's at stake and what's been lost and what we need to be saving.
Yeah. Okay, so dad to dad, I have to just talk me through the horrific day, just because this is what people need. I remember where I was. Nick and I were talking about it. I pulled over, and I just was weeping. It was a day that all I was thinking about was you, and I didn't know you, and I was. It was so, and selfishly, it shattered my belief. I think I told you this last night. It shattered my belief in. Not religious belief in humanity. And I was like, where's the one? And I know it probably happened before. That wasn't the first school shooting like that. But these young kids, like, why? Okay, let's just start with,
Yeah, I mean, in 2012, it wasn't unprecedented, but it was the first time 7 and 6-year-olds were shot to death. You know?
Right.
So, yeah, for me, as a musician and a stay-at-home dad, I had the privilege of a very close relationship with my 3 children.
Yeah.
Daniel was the youngest of the 3, so we got to spend a lot of time while the other 2 were in school, or James and Natalie were in school, and I used to just bask in it, in my opportunity to be with my kids.
Yeah.
It was never lost on me that this was a very special opportunity, that we were able to be with our kids around the clock. We didn't have to do daycare.
Yeah.
And I just used to love every minute with Daniel. And I used to tell him, I really enjoy your company, because he had such a beautiful, empathetic set. He noticed nature, he noticed birds, he was looking at the sunrise and the sunset, and always taking care of those around him. And that's from like the little ants and the worms on the sidewalk that he would pick up and save them from burning on the sidewalk, to his peers. He was the first one with his hand up in school to try to help somebody if they needed help.
Yeah. And as your third, because I mean, our third, he's like, how come there are no pictures of me? I mean, it's like by the time you have your third,
right,
you're like, whatever. I mean, like, and how old? What's the difference in age?
So yeah.
Daniel was 7.
Daniel was 7. Natalie was 10, and James was 12, and Natalie was about to turn 11. James and Natalie are about 22 months apart.
Yeah.
And then Daniel was 2 years younger, but 3 years younger. And they were very close to each other. They used to love spending time together. They were always together. You know, just how they all had their own bed, and many nights they would sleep in the same bed because they wanted to be together.
Come on.
So yeah, it was.
So how do you, as a family, even deal with? I mean, it's just unthinkable.
I'll let you know when I get there, man.
They're superhuman. I can attest to that. Each family member. I don't know. I don't know how you do any of this, but he feels compelled to keep on telling the story again and again, and we're going to talk about it right now. And
but
Greg asked you about the more,
It's very much a process. It's a daily process.
Yeah.
Like I still, like you said, like you're still trying to wrap your head around it. So am I.
Yeah.
And I still have my moments where, like, I wake up and think, oh, Daniel's gone, or we work and work and work to achieve a victory in programs in schools or in legislation. And we finally get there, and it's like, yes, we did it. And then it's like,
but it's not going to bring him back.
It's not going to bring my Daniel back.
Yeah. And what your whole family has dealt with. How's the family? Like, we're
lucky. We're really lucky. We have a very close, very open, honest, compassionate relationship with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll just share, maybe overshare that. There were times where Jackie and I were just in a pile on the kitchen floor, just sobbing, holding each other, saying, I don't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And James and Natalie would come find us and put their arms around us, and our 10 and 12-year-old were helping us get through those moments. And
Incredible.
There was no playbook, it's just like survival. And
did they get into therapy? Were they talking?
We've all done therapy. We've done various forms of therapy, and from traditional to non-traditional.
Yeah.
And we had a therapist tell us with regard to James and Natalie that they are obviously very well supported, both by your immediate family and by this wonderful network of extended family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
We're very lucky. We're very fortunate that we've had this network of people who love us, who've supported us and held us up through this, and still do.
How did you deal with the anger?
Still dealing with that.
Yeah.
It can be corrosive. It can be, at least I can intellectualize that it's counterproductive and toxic, and it's not going to get me anywhere.
Does it fuel you
I'm
at
on a
times?
range of how I manage that.
Yeah.
And it depends on what the trigger is, I mean, frustration toward trying to get things done that should be simple, that should be universally accepted is one thing, and then you have, we were just referring earlier today, these unhinged people, who are, sending us death threats, and to manage that on top of your grief is a whole set of things that I've never...
Or the absolute lunacy that you've had to deal with people saying this didn't happen.
Yeah.
Even worse than that, like threatening him, saying that, the putting the family in danger because of spreading lies.
It's just unthinkable. It's unthinkable.
Yeah, I had no idea that whole ideology even existed.
I don't think anyone who's a normal person did. When I heard that, I'm like, what are you talking about? And someone with a bully pulpit actually is charging the way, is leading the way?
Yeah. Imagine.
These people are like, they're writing their tickets to hell. Like they're just going, I know where I'm going, and I'm going to make the most of it. I just can't imagine.
Yeah, and
I don't know how you felt too, because when we watched the documentary, the Alex Jones documentary, and I watched it with my wife, and she made me turn it off. She's like, I just can't handle it.
Yeah, you almost feel like dirty, like consuming that because
Right.
it's so ugly and
Right.
vile. Yeah. So
And even
anyway,
if you're exposing it,
we don't need to give that any more.
No,
any
exactly.
more oxygen.
I know. We had talked about it. And I was like, let's
Yeah.
I just want to touch on it, but I don't want to give it any more oxygen than it doesn't deserve any at all.
No.
So, okay. So I know that selfishly, for me, what I do for this community, it's a way for me to control something in this craziness. So do you feel that same way?
And good on you for doing that. And absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard work. It's hard work anyway. But then for me, as a, in my position to be kind of immersed in the world and all the components that led to my little boy's murder, it's not easy. And I have to temper that with the fact that I have to get myself out of the way and remember that it's actually a privilege to be able to honor Daniel's life with this work and to be able to protect everyone else's life with this work. And it's just way bigger than me, and it's bigger than my grief, and it's what keeps me going. It's because I know we have something that works. We have a model that works.
Look at that face, dude. I mean, come on. What a beautiful child. Unbelievable. Right now, obviously, gun violence, it's such a massive problem in this country. What is this, something that is so misunderstood or understood that people just need to be more aware of?
So let's identify the problem. It's a public health crisis. We are suffering an out-of-control shooting epidemic in this country, like no other country. And there are so many solutions to it. We have a model that works with Sandy Hook Promise. And like you said, it's about bringing awareness of what it is and what it isn't and what the solutions are and what they're not. And Artists for Action is all about bringing awareness to people and to more people and through that creative lens that you spoke to.
Yeah.
That's where my heart lives. I'm a musician. That's who I am. And for me to be able to combine this advocacy work with my creative self and to the work with Artists for Action and bringing other creatives and artists and performers into this space is there's so much value and potential in that I'm really excited about it.
Coming up on Talk About It.
This is incredible. 23 million participants nationwide, 686 confirmed lives saved with crisis intervention.
Yeah.
So that's somebody
that we know of.
That you
That
know
could be
of.
tracked.
Right, yeah.
Right. You might at this point be thinking to yourself, wait, I thought Talk About It was about epilepsy and seizure conditions and rare forms of epilepsy and other health conditions. Well, you're right. And that is our main concentration. But there are other things that are very, very important to talk about. And obviously, this is one of them. So we will be doing this occasionally. And I just wanted to pop out and just let you know that you're in the right place. As Talk About It expands, so are the topics and the causes that we support and certain things we absolutely need to talk about. And this is one of them. Let's get back to talking about it. How did Artists for Action start?
Artists for Action started as an outgrowth of two things. Neal and I run a company called Artists for Artists that's a talent management and marketing agency with a focus on social impact.
You guys like the word artists. I'm just
We
going to say.
love
I'm
the
throwing
word
that out
artist.
there.
We love the letter
Yeah, you love the letter A. Is it because, like in the phone book, is it just like, we got to get that first listing?
And, I had met Mark through my work with Yoko Ono on the John Lennon bus, which is where we filmed some of the documentary. And that was the genesis of that. And Mark's story really stayed with me when we filmed material on the bus because I had my first child a month after we met. And so as soon as I became a dad and then a dad of two, it stayed on my mind and it was kind of in the back. And then the Nashville shootings happened. And both Neal and I have kids. And I was just thinking of Mark right away. And I called him and I said, what can we do? How can we help? In the same way that you're saying, what can I do? How can we help?
Yeah.
And he said, what if we bring a coalition of artists together to speak about the topic and just get the word out and do all that we can. And I said, well, will that help? He's like, everything helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was license for us to go and hit up Billie Eilish and Sheryl Crow and Peter Gabriel and Nile Rodgers and, all these different artists who were, just needed to be told this is, what can I do to help in the same way that we're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And we amassed a great list of artists who are all supportive of our cause. Artists for Action has become a very simple platform that's all about volunteering, donating, and voting. And we also have a concert series, the film A Father's Promise, that we co-produced with director Rick Korn.
Yeah, A Father's Promise, and he said, he was like, "Oh, I'll get you a link." I'm like, "Yeah, when is it coming out? Like, what's the latest with that?"
So we did a theatrical release in December of last year.
Nick's right on it. Everything we mentioned
I know.
just shows up on the screen.
He's amazing.
He does.
Amazing. And the guitar is very slow. Very slow. But the keyboards, for some reason.
Slow hand.
Yeah.
It's executive produced by Sheryl Crow. We're going to do a direct-to-consumer release through Giant Pictures this September.
This is great. This is really great.
And so you'll see people like Mark performed with all these amazing people.
Bernie
like
Williams played with our
Sheryl
band.
Crow, Bernie Williams.
Bernie's is great. He's the
Bernie's
greatest.
amazing.
Desky Trucks.
He's
Bernie's
so cool.
yeah.
Bernie's so cool.
So
Dude,
smooth.
he played with us at NAMM, too. We played at NAMM.
The John Lennon bus outside
yeah.
of
Yes.
Nam. Okay.
So cool.
So we met on that, but at the Grammys in 2020.
Wow. But
Which, by the way, we're talking about Mark being a musician. Let's just. This is with Jimmy Vivino.
That is Jimmy Vivino.
Rich
yeah.
Pagano.
Rich Pagano, yeah.
Listen to that voice.
Come on, man. That's so cool.
So I didn't know at the time we were doing Soulshine, which is a what was an Allman Brothers song, but I think Warren Haynes wrote it, and Danny Lewis, who was playing B3 in there, is in Government Mule with Warren Haynes.
That's so funny.
And I don't know if I knew. I literally just walked on stage and met everybody and we did the song. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so glad I didn't know that.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say halfway through the song, you were like, oh boy, this is, I just love tapping into a community. You have a community that this is what you do. You're a professional musician. Now, you said you weren't touring? Do you tour ever?
I was touring when I met my wife. I was living in Nashville and touring.
Right.
And we were going to live in Nashville, and we decided both of our families are from New York. She's from the Bronx. I'm from Yonkers. We just thought this is where we need to be. She's Irish Catholic. She's number 9 of 10 kids. So
Right.
we just thought this is where we need to be, and never looked back. It was the right choice, all things considered.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to be home with my kids. So
Yeah.
I kind of modified my music to I was doing a residency on 2nd Avenue. I played on 52nd Street every Tuesday night for 10 years.
Turtle
And
Bay.
then
Turtle
Wednesday
Bay.
night, Turtle Bay.
Yeah.
Wednesday night in Greenwich, Connecticut for 10 years. And then doing pickup gigs on the weekends and then teaching and doing, just whatever I could just to keep it going. And
Right.
we were fortunate enough that I was able to continue my music career without touring and
And then stunt
support my
work,
family.
stunt work for Bruce Willis.
And- oh, yeah.
That must have taken a lot of your time.
Kind of keep that, Bruce.
Sorry, we don't want to talk about that. But if people want to know more about the film, is there that website you pulled up so people can go to check out this, but they won't be able to see? Is that a trailer that was up?
Yeah, there's a trailer there, so you
Okay.
can watch that, and you can see Mark performing with Sheryl Crow and Karen
Yeah.
And my little
Fairchild
Natalie with
and
Sheryl
Natalie.
Crow.
Really, really
That's
cool.
at fatherspromisefilm.com for all the listeners.
Yeah, for
Father's
when they're
Promise.
just listening. So, okay, one of the other things that I brought up last night was, and you had mentioned to me, all of the incredible work that you're doing, but the numbers that matter to me are the numbers of school shootings that you've stopped, the number of people you have saved. When you were talking about how, it used to be when we were kids, I mean, I'm older than you, but like when we were kids, it was snitches get stitches.
I use that term all the time.
I know. And you used it last night, and I was like, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
It is a real thing. But what you're encouraging people to do is you see something, say something, which can save a life. I mean, and I've seen that. And I told you a story last night. Just recognizing somebody that's hurting.
Right.
Just acknowledge them. But when it comes to this is incredible. 23 million participants nationwide, 686 confirmed lives saved with crisis intervention. So that's somebody
that we know of.
that you
That
know
can be
of.
tracked.
Right, yeah.
Right, because people don't Talk about
be
it.
underreported.
You're all getting a hat today, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't make
you.
these hats.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got to cover that lid, Mark. I'm sorry.
I'm telling you, it's like it's a mess after that ride. I didn't bring any product. I'm a mess.
I got to get pork pies that say talk about it so you can actually perform with one of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
But is this one of the things that you're most proud of right now? I mean, it has to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and beyond these impressive numbers, I have to say, I'm very proud of that. I mean, 16 planned school shootings that were ready to happen, that were imminent, law enforcement cooperated, that this is a clear and present danger was about to happen. That did not happen.
And that's a parent saying something?
That's a student who saw something most likely in social media, told their trusted adult, or used our crisis center and got an intervention, you know, told somebody that they were concerned about at-risk behavior, and 16 school shootings that were planned. And you know, there's a very high, there's a criteria that has to be met to be actually credible. And they were, you know, it's tracked to students who were trained in our Say Something program, who followed the model and averted a tragedy from happening. And so but beyond these actual numbers is to see how engaged the students are. They really take it seriously. They're engaged. They're empowered by it. And they understand how serious it is. They're not burdened with the responsibility of having to follow this through. They see something in themselves or something in a peer, they tell their trusted adult, or they use the anonymous reporting system, hand it over, and then it gets taken care of from there. And those folks are all trained on what to do, what next steps are.
Right.
And then they get help to whoever
So if
needs
somebody's
it.
listening to this right now or watching this right now, what is, and they are right now, they know somebody is in trouble.
So what's different about what we do here, Greg, is it's not like a tip line that we handed out. We're very deliberate about it. So what we do with our crisis counselor, with our crisis center, is that we train a district. Right? We train the students before it goes live. We train the parents and the teachers. We identify who the support systems are, who the administrators are, the whole fabric of everybody in the community that could be involved. When a tip comes into the crisis center, it's triaged. They know exactly by a code number. Now, when it goes live, a student sends a tip, or a parent or a teacher sends a tip, either by email or text or phone call or whatever. That crisis counselor knows exactly what to do based on the nature of that tip. So if it's a non-life safety issue, they'll tell the appropriate personnel or staff at an appropriate time. They're not going to wake up the principal at 3 a.m. and say, "Timmy was pulling hair on the bus today."
Right.
Which is what happens when they use a conventional pass-through. Right. So this crisis counselor gets a tip that's imminent life safety, like, "I'm done, I'm going to take my life." Or Timmy said, or I saw something on social media, Timmy's going to pack his backpack full of guns and going to shoot up school tomorrow. Then law enforcement is brought to the scene, and first responders are on scene right away. Right. And so an intervention is made, and then there's follow-up. So that person gets the care and the support that they need that perpetuated the tip in the first place. And so it's a kind of a wraparound system. The children are supported in school, on their way to school, on their way home from school, and at home.
So somebody's listening to this right now. What are the warnings? These are imminent things that have been stopped. This is when you get to that point when it's like, I know this is about to happen. What about way before that?
Well, that's really where our sweet spot is. It's in the real upstream violence prevention. So we have a Start With Hello program that teaches children to understand the difference between healthy alone time and somebody who's possibly at risk because of sustained chronic social isolation, and make that person, they have a whole toolkit, all kinds of activities to make those people feel included and visible, and it doesn't have to be very complicated. It could be a little activity in the cafeteria that makes that person feel included and valued and seen.
That's great.
So that's way upstream, and so you don't even know what you're mitigating down the line, right? By relieving that stress of somebody who's chronically socially isolated. And then sort of next in the stream is we know from a lot of extensive research, evidence-informed data shows us that there are warning signs, like almost always warning signs.
But that's my thing. What should parents be looking for?
Isolated behavior, changing friend groups, talking about harming themselves, talking about harming others, other changes in behavior. We have a whole list on our website of what are those warning signs, but it also comes with the training that the students receive. Yeah. Like, it's not just if you see it, but look for it. Right. Look for those behaviors in yourself or somebody else. Right. And then here's what you do to respond accordingly to help you get to a healthier place. So before it becomes something more serious.
Coming up on Talk About It.
You're not trying to take a responsible gun owner's gun from their hands.
Period.
Period.
Everything didn't turn upside down. They didn't send, jackbooted marshals to your house to take all your guns away.
Right.
We're actually safer, and we're saving lives with this legislation, and this is how this can work.
Right. I don't care what side you're on. There is no side. There's one side, which is our
That's
kids.
right. That's right.
Let's say you see something and you want to say something, which is incumbent upon all of us to do that. If you talk about this with the right people, you could be saving lives. How do you do that? You go to sandyhookpromise.org and submit an anonymous tip. You can submit a tip on the computer. You can call the hotline. It's 1-844-5-SAY-NOW. You can get the app and do it through the app. It's all anonymous. And you can request follow-up information on the tip that you have given them. It's very simple, and again, it can save lives, and it has. It's working. So if you see something, say something. And, because it's called Talk About It, I'm just going to segue into how do parents talk to their 7-year-olds, their young children?
Yeah. So for the folks at home, Nick is bringing up some of the 10 critical warning signs of violence. And we have parent and teacher training so they know how to talk when they observe or if somebody tells them.
Yeah.
If a student tells their trusted adult, who might be their parent, who might be their coach,
Right.
might be a community leader, what to do with that information and how to address it accordingly to what that tip is.
Okay.
Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's connecting to a support service in their community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what about talking to your child who's just going to school? Just to talk about, we didn't have to have these conversations when I was a kid. So how do you approach it as a parent to not scare your kids? The people are listening to this right now going, there are drills at school that we just didn't have.
So two things there. And I would say what's worked for us personally, from my own personal experience, is just establishing a rapport with your children from the get-go and having an open communication. And you're still going to get how was your day? Fine. You're still going to get that.
Of course.
That's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, but by the way, this is so. I can only relate it back to our personal thing. There are some days when Jake's just when he was younger, I'm like, what is going on? What?
Yep.
And we're
going through that right now.
Right.
I have a 7-year-old.
Yeah, but Jake takes a handful of medications in the morning, a handful at night, and some of those medications have side effects, and it's not necessarily a seizure, but it alters his behavior, and he's just and then he'll say, I'm sorry, Dad. Sorry, I was like that. Sorry, I mouthed off to Mom or whatever, and he doesn't know but we can sometimes attribute that with just like he's just a normal 12-year-old. Some of this behavior that might be a warning sign for some parents, but I say, if you're wrong, okay,
That's
you're wrong,
great.
it's great.
The same thing. We train that. We train that. Like, take it seriously, act immediately. Best case scenario, it was nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
In other cases, what looks like maybe nothing is something, and you don't want to take that chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to your other point about these trainings, we in Sandy Hook Promise have written model legislation on what preparedness should look like and what it shouldn't look like. And some school districts are doing simulated active shooter drills in their schools that are very realistic and are absolutely traumatizing students.
They do a drunk driving thing where they don't tell the kids who that kid is going to be. They take all the kids out to the front of the school, and the car's smashed, and the paramedics are there, and they're trying to revive him. And all these kids are sitting there. They know it's fake, but it's devastating. And it's like you're one bad decision away, drinking and driving, away from that happening. So to do a drill where it's, I don't know if it's like they're pretending that it actually happened.
Well, what we've learned, and this is, again, backed by research, that it's actually counterproductive because some of these drills have fake blood, and it's actual, live dummy rounds or whatever, and it's absolutely damaging. It's damaging students. In middle schools, they're having active shoot. There is a way to do that. There's a way to train for that and prepare for that and understand the seriousness of it and have the tools and the protocols and the procedures in place to respond to that in an appropriate way that doesn't include that because it's absolutely traumatizing.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of study from a trauma-informed perspective and from a lot of research how to design that in a way that is effective, that's also not damaging and And so we're working on passing that as legislation and what that model should look like.
Okay.
I couldn't handle that.
No.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No.
think
Yeah.
about kids, what they walk away from that with.
You just said there is something to it, because to bring it home and make it as real
Well,
as
it has to be serious. There has to be an impact.
Right.
But it also, there's a way to do it properly.
Right.
It's not going to.
Not trauma-inducing.
Right. Nick,
Talking about legislation on that subject now, can you talk about the resistance? How do you break through whenever there are people whose job it is to help change this, who are incentivized by not changing it?
So there's a lot of, thanks for that question, Nick. And there's a lot of, we touched on this in our meeting last night. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of value in nuanced, deliberate messaging, and it's about education and awareness and what is this and what is this not. And so there are lots of programmatic policies that we have written and passed with bipartisan support. But when we're talking more about specifically gun safety, everything that we do is consistent with a person who identifies as a responsible gun owner. So everyone should pass a background check before any type of firearm transfer. Everyone should store that firearm safely in their home, so that anyone in the home should not have access to it that shouldn't have access to it. So not only minors and toddlers, but somebody who might be, ideating on self-harm should not have access to that firearm.
Right.
So there are ways to do that. And also there are tools like, some folks call it a red flag law or extreme risk protection order. We have kind of rebranded it crisis of aversion and rights retention. It's all spelled out of the name of the bill. But if there's somebody in the home that is exhibiting at-risk behaviors and they're in danger of hurting themselves or others because they have access to deadly force in the home, there's a tool where police can come and say, yeah, I think you're right. This person should not have access to firearms right now. It's a temporary transfer. They don't have access until they're okay, until they get whatever help or support they need, and they can then, there's a due process where they can get those firearms back. That saves lives. Research informs that. But in the name, crisis aversion, so we're averting a crisis, someone's going to do something horrible with a firearm, and then if they survive that, they would then lose their rights to own a firearm. So it's crisis aversion and rights retention. So back to your question, Nick, it's so much about what you're doing, what you're advocating for. So if you're tracking with me, nothing that I just said with specific firearm policy is contrary or is running afoul of anyone's Second Amendment rights.
Right.
I was just going to say that.
If anything, it's protecting those rights.
Yeah, and that's something that you made very clear last night. You're not trying to take a responsible gun owner's gun from their hands.
Period.
So let's stop with that. And obviously, that's a powerful message for people that only want to make money with this whole thing. They're just going to keep saying it. Yeah. But it is false. It is absolutely 100% a lie. And last night you were like, that's not what we're doing.
Right. And that takes us full circle to where we started, where you said, awareness and education. It's about bringing awareness. What is this? What isn't it? And what can we do to fix it?
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that you brought legislation up, 90% of the country wants background checks.
Yeah.
90%.
Yeah.
And they won't even bring it to a vote in the Senate because they're being paid by the gun lobby. And it's what I find amazing is that this is bipartisan. You've said it.
Yeah.
Everybody in Washington really does want to deal with this, but they're scared. We're not going to call anybody out here, but they're scared. And
some are scared.
Yeah, some are scared. Some are scared. But I just, it's...
What are others? Some are scared. What are the other ones? What's the reaction?
I mean, I've had legislators tell me, just to my face, I agree with this, but if I vote yes on it, I'm going to lose my seat because my constituency has been misinformed and they believe that it's the slippery slope to registration and ultimately confiscation. They'll tell me that to my face. I'm like, really?
Okay. Circling back to how do you not freak out at that?
Okay, now he's yelling at you. Nick, stop yelling at Mark.
I'm with you.
It makes me so mad, I can't imagine.
Get angry.
Yeah.
I see you, Nick. I feel you, Nick. I mean, absolutely. We talked about this. How do I keep a cool head and not get angry? And we have to be, and it's hard, have to figure out ways to not get frustrated and to continue to try to build this coalition of people who can understand this for what it is and what it isn't. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act is a great example of that. It was the most significant piece of gun safety legislation that has passed at the federal level in this country in over 30 years. Right? And we're still seeing the results of that, where the final rule on the background check exemption just came through and it has closed up a lot more of that loophole. There's still have work to do.
Yeah.
But it's getting there. There's funding for violence intervention programs at the community level in that bill. A lot of good work in that bill, and it's bipartisan.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, beyond the efficacy of the language of the bill and the good that it will do, there was also a very clear message in there and a good precedent that, hey, everything didn't turn upside down. They didn't send, jackbooted marshals to your house to take all your guns away.
Right.
We're actually safer, and we're saving lives with this legislation, and this is how this can work.
Right. So I look at this. I don't care what side you're on. There is no side. There's one side, which is our kids.
That's right.
That's what I look at this, and I think there's hope. Like, you're providing hope to everyone.
So let's start the conversation with. We have solutions that will protect our kids. This is my broken record.
There's proof
mantra.
in those numbers. It's unbelievable.
Let's talk about how we protect our kids and make our community safer. Let's start there.
Yeah.
All right. So if you don't want to talk about guns, let's talk about how we can provide better, adequate mental health care to more Americans who need it. I mean, we can do that. And let's not mistake it with that mental health is not the driver of this. Mental health is experienced by people around the globe. Only in the United States, when you pair lack of mental wellness or anger management or conflict resolution or impulse control, whatever you want to call it, with easy access to firearms.
Right.
That's a big misconception.
That's why our numbers are off the charts compared to other countries.
Right.
And in there is where we have so much opportunity to get better at this, and while preserving and keeping our Second Amendment rights intact.
Video games, movies, TV. We were talking about it last night.
Every place in the world has access to that content.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, great. Just knock me down, Mark. I mean, I was going on a really good.
It's hard to argue with.
No. But it's what we were talking about last night, where it'd be great if the content wasn't the gun is the hero.
Oh,
or as
so let's
much.
talk about that.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Is that I mentioned to you last night where I was talking about it. Remember, I was like, wait a minute.
This is how you can help.
Yeah, this is how I can help, is to get to the creators of this material and say, let's be sensitive to it. They're not going to change it.
No, let them understand it.
Let them understand
That's
that,
the first piece.
Right.
Gun violence in America. All that being said, all of that horrible landscape that we just described does not mean that gun violence in America is inevitable.
Right.
And that there are solutions and it is preventable. And that, the way we talk about it and
the way we what?
Hollywood, the way we talk about it.
Thank you.
The way we talk about it. See what we did there?
You just earned your hat.
Yeah, all right. Again.
Put it on.
When do I earn my jam?
Let's go.
So
when do I earn my jam?
So, yes. So there's a role to play. Dare I say there is a responsibility incumbent on folks who are creating the media that we are all consuming.
Yeah.
To maybe bake it in, implicit or otherwise, into these scripts that folks can understand that, yes, there are warning signs and people don't just snap overnight, that there are warning signs leading up to these tragedies, and it is incumbent on all of us to recognize them and connect them to help. And that, yes, maybe the hero, with blazing firearms isn't maybe the narrative we want to continue to perpetuate.
There's a blurred line for some people that might be, if we reach one person who's like, oh, that game, because when they go in, when you see these people that go into churches and synagogues and schools, and there's this video game sense to it, where there's just, these aren't human beings, these aren't lives. Maybe that's again, it's one of many things we can do.
Instead of going backwards and looking at what you've done in the past, I like your idea of actually getting an ensemble of people who are writing the shows together, like you mentioned.
That's for sure.
And let's educate them. Let's have a discussion about it.
Summit.
A summit.
That's a great idea.
And then
summit.
we can inform, and even if they are showing the stuff, showing what happens in preventative measures and and the reality of somebody going through that and showing that.
I talked to one of those people yesterday. I was driving home. I was like, we have to do this. And he's a big supporter of Sandy Hook Promise. And he said to me, he was like, there have been little things of that, discussions. People have gotten on Zooms and they've talked and nothing's changed.
With experts like Mark?
No.
There you go.
No, for 100%.
But it's not going to be one conversation.
Right.
We're going to have to keep doing that.
Yes.
And so may I just set the record straight that there still is a responsibility on the content that our children have access to in video games, just like in film. But I mean, there are some really violent, and the gun lobby is all over that, and the gun manufacturers are all over that, and product placement and marketing is all wrapped into that.
Yeah. And
they're marketing to children, which we talk about on our website as well.
Yeah.
And we talked about that last night. But, I don't mean to dismiss that like, oh, everybody, but there is a responsibility and there is a role to play for them as well.
For sure.
To stop glorifying this, just like shoot them up.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue this conversation. I cannot thank you enough for sitting down. I know this has been a whirlwind of meetings and things and all of this stuff, but there's no more important person to meet in this town than me. So I am really, really excited that you came here. I know our audience, we're branching out into subject matter and things that are so important that people aren't talking about enough, and nothing could be more important than this. And I know there are health conditions. I'm part of that, but this is at the very top. So
thank you for the opportunity to let us come here and talk about it.
Yeah, no, please. And we'll continue this dialogue, and I will do everything I possibly can. So hopefully we'll have updates in future episodes where we can be like, yeah, we got the summit together and here's what happened and all that.
Let's continue to talk about it.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
You like my brand awareness?
I do. I like it a lot. I like the hat. Boom. I mean, it'll be the best $40 you ever spent, Mark. Wait, what? Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Talk About It. Remember, we're all human. We're all dealing with something, and a little compassion every day can change so many lives. Thank you to our special guests. Special thanks to our sponsor, SeizuresAreSigns.com. Thank you to J.J. Abrams for our theme music. Thank you to Nick Marzak for producing, directing, editing, and incidental music. On behalf of my fellow producers, Phil Gattone, Ken Lohenberg, and Nick Marzak, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you're not watching, go to talkaboutitonvideo.com to watch these episodes. They're now on video as well. I'm Greg Grunberg. Don't forget to talk about it, and I will see you next time. This podcast is a production of the Talk About It Company.